Hello, I'm Tom Keegan. He's Matt Tait. We are KU Sports Extra. Matt Tait, give me some good news.
Good news. It has to come from the basketball team now that the basketball season has started. And more specifically, it's Sviatoslav Mikhailuk. I like saying that, not as much as you, but I do like saying it. What I like more is watching him shoot the way he did against Fort Hays State. He's not going to go 5 for 8 every night, but he is a very good three-point shooter. He is a very big-time weapon that can come off that bench. And if he can shoot that ball even remotely close to that with some consistency all year, he's a game changer for this team, and he becomes a guy that you have to find minutes for in a hurry.
He has a quick release, but last year when you'd have the quick release, it looked like he was hurrying. This year it didn't look like he was hurrying, just as quick. Shows he's gotten used to the speed of the game. He's stronger. He's filled out. And he's gone from 17 to 18 chronologically, but in basketball years, he's gone from about 16 to 20.
Yeah, very good news, too, because in that Pitt State game, the first exhibition game, he didn't look good. He looked lost again. He just looked like he hadn't developed at all. And all we heard all offseason was that he had worked hard with Hootie. He had developed. He had gotten stronger. All those things you just mentioned. That didn't show up against Pitt State, but it obviously did against Fort Hays.
And that certainly is good news.
Good news.
And the bad news is that only one of their marksmen, one of their snipers off the bench, was able to play. Brandon Green was warming up and felt something wrong with his hip, so that's not 100% yet. It's not firing 100%. And as Bill Self said after the game, one of the few teams in the country that can bring off the bench 2 shooters of that caliber. And went on to say that Brandon Green's as pure a shooter as he's ever coached, and that Svi isn't quite at that level, but he's close.
Sure.
So bad news if Green's going to be on again, off again with that hip, and hips are tricky things. So, if he can get that behind him, that'd be good news. For right now, though, it's bad news.
Yeah, it didn't sound overwhelmingly serious or anything like that, but it's just if you had your choice, you'd rather not have him deal with that, obviously. This team wouldn't want that.
And we're dealing this week with
TCU
in football. And speaking of bad news, this again, for the second week in a row, Kansas football is playing against a team coming off a bad loss. And look out when that happens, because these are emotional kids. That's when you don't want to face a team.
Sure.
Not that Kansas ever wants to face an offense like TCU's.
45-point favorite, TCU is. And I say that because it's been however many weeks in a row where they've been 30-plus point underdogs. But now I said it, and it was almost like, 45-point underdog.
Right.
What? 45 is enormous. There's no reason to just act like that's okay. That's absurd.
If it's 70 to 20.
They cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would you think, gee, that's an awful performance by Kansas if it's 70 to 20? I don't think you would.
Hanging in there. Scored 20.
Yeah.
I think for Vegas, that's the thing. You can almost mark it down that KU's not going to get many points. I mean, they got the garbage touchdown against Texas. Otherwise, they only have 14 there.
Right.
It just seems like Vegas can set that number at either 7 or 14 every week, and then.
And this has been going on for years. Let's face it. So, who's your primetime player at the TCU game for Kansas football?
I've got Keon Kenner. I thought he looked really good against Texas. I talked to him after the game a little bit, and then again this week. He said he's healthy, and he really feels healthy again. He said the injuries, and he had a bunch of different nagging injuries. What they really affected was lateral movement and his acceleration, and he said both of those felt pretty much like they did in weeks 1 and weeks 2.
And he looked like that.
And it looked like that, both as a running back and also catching passes out of the backfield. So I think he finally is healthy again. I think it's very possible he could finish the season the way he started it. If he does, that's right there, a little momentum heading into next season. And you're looking for
they need at running back.
Small momentum, small signs of just something to carry over.
And I don't think their running back depth is what it usually is at the moment. Although Taylor Martin, it'd be interesting to see what kind of player he blossoms into.
Yeah.
My primetime player for the TCU game is wide receiver Trey Parmalee. Parmalee and freshman Steven Sims were suspended for a game, did not play in Texas, and whatever silly or stubborn thing Parmalee and Sims did or did not do, it's behind them. They've restored the respect of the coaching staff and teammates, and they're playing, and they got to feel like they owe their teammates one because they weren't there for them last week in Austin. So I'm predicting a big game by KU standards for Trey Parmalee.
I love that pick, and David Beatty said those two guys practiced their tails off on Monday.
Right.
So I didn't know they had tails.
Yeah, so
but
it's
if
just
they
going
came
to be
off, they were working hard.
It's just going to be legs and torso.
Very good. It sounds like we're both picking TCU, but give me a score. What do you have, KU or TCU?
I have, come on. I have TCU 70, KU 20, which is the score I just referenced.
Wow,
Yeah.
Incredible. I like it. I'm right.
It doesn't sound too bad, does
No,
it?
I got 63-14. 9 touchdowns for one team, 2 for the other. So you could boil that down to a 9-2 loss, and that sounds a little better.
And that's 49 points.
There you go. Cover.
7 times 7. Yeah, cover for TCU.
Unbelievable. All right, well, we do have a basketball game to pick as well this week. KU opens the regular season officially against Northern Colorado Friday night. You going to pick Northern Colorado? No way, right?
No, I'm not going to be picking Northern Colorado. I will go KU 88, Northern Colorado 62. That's a 26-point spread. That's a huge spread. But I'm thinking with Michigan State right around the corner, KU's going to want to keep its focus amped up the way it was against Fort Hays State in the exhibition, the way it was not in the previous week against Pitt State. So we'll go 88-62 Kansas.
Same ballpark for me. 85-65. I watched a little about Northern Colorado. Their head coach, B.J. Hill, said 2 things that really jumped out to me. One, this is the second toughest schedule that he's ever had at Northern Colorado, so his guys already know that's going to be a little scary. It doesn't get much scarier than opening that schedule with Kansas on the road, so that's tough. Number 2, he talked about a lot of new faces and some of the guys that the game's finally starting to slow down for. That's scary because it's not going to slow down in Allen Fieldhouse. It's going to be a whirlwind, and those guys are going to have their hands full. So.
And they don't have a ton of size.
No, not at all.
And that's one reason I'm going with Perry Ellis as my primetime player. Looking for a big senior year out of Perry Ellis and looking for teammates to look for him a little better than they did last year, a little more efficiently, including Carlton Bragg, who loves to throw that high-low pass. And so Perry Ellis is my primetime player for the season opener against Northern Colorado.
Carlton Bragg, good-looking player, good-looking headband. Rumor has it Clinton Bowen likes to wear that headband when he plays basketball. I heard that somewhere.
I don't think so. He might have seen you wearing a headband at an adult league basketball game.
Maybe that was it. But I've been wearing it longer than Carlton Bragg's been alive, I'm afraid to tell you. I'm going to go with Devontae Graham. I really like the way he looked in those 2 exhibition games as far as filling up the stat sheet. I think it's more than just a guy that can score, more than just a guy who can handle the ball and run the offense. He can rebound. He can find ways to get other guys involved. I think Devontae Graham is really ready, and I know you do too, to make that leap and from a pretty good player as a freshman to a really good player as a sophomore. I think all season you'll see his stat line read similar things, maybe 8-10 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, things like that. And if you've got a guy who can do that along with all these other weapons, dangerous team.
Yeah, and he, obviously we've talked about his leadership qualities in the past. This is my 11th season of covering Kansas basketball, which means going to every home game and every road game with a rare exception here or there for a football game. And I can't remember another player with as much positive personality and positive energy as Devontae Graham has. And that will lead to not only his individual improvement, but in inspiring teammates to improve. So Kansas really has a good one in Devontae Graham.
You said you can't remember another player, but I'm going to throw one out there just in case, and maybe you forgot this guy. Mr. Positive Personality, Josh Selby.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Do you want to reconsider?
What great body language.
An amazing addition to that team.
Another, C.J. Henry.
Yeah, wow.
The all-body language
just
team.
Just loved being out there.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. All right, well, let's finish it off like we always do. Speaking of an obnoxious former Jayhawks, who's your most obnoxious man or woman in sports this week?
Well, the assistant professor of journalism, so-called journalism at Missouri, Melissa Click. And click is a word that has entered the
journalism
lingo in recent years. Yes. And Professor Click, Assistant Professor Click, called for muscle to remove a photographer from the Missouri protest situation. Obviously, it's on public grounds on the Missouri campus, so I'm sure Professor Click would teach her students that you have a right to be there and you have a right to report the news, and it's your duty to report the news. It's not a privilege, it's a right. Yet she called for muscle to remove this photographer. And she ended up resigning from one of her posts there. It's a little vague as to whether she's completely gone from the university. And apologized to journalism, to all journalists, blah, blah, blah. But she did what she did, and this is where you get some power hunger. And sometimes, it's a rare exception, but sometimes you'll see a journalism professor who preaches one thing, but then when it comes to a media outlet that covers that university, they then get different feelings about it and maybe run that outlet down.
Ugly.
Yeah,
ugly.
Bad news.
The whole scene, very ugly.
Yeah, and the student president, student body president, Head is his last name, Peyton Head, tweeted that the confirmed sighting of the KKK on the Missouri campus, tweeted that, adding to the hysteria.
Yeah, right.
And then apologized for tweeting that.
Whoops.
Yeah.
That's the generation. That's the mentality, right? Whoops.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that.
I mean, that's really, really bad.
Really bad. Did you see the video of the professor calling for the Muslims?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really impressed by the way that photographer handled himself.
Yeah,
He stood his ground, said, I have a right to be here, and I'm going to do my job.
Right.
Kept trying to take pictures above people and around people. I mean, that's a journalist.
He knew he was right.
That's right. Good for him. I was impressed by that and appalled by the other thing. It's just awful. It's not rooted totally in sports, but because of the Missouri football team and their role in all that, definitely somebody in sports and definitely obnoxious.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with one that's hits a little closer to home for KU fans. And this is just the most obnoxious thing maybe I've seen all year, the entire 2015.
Wow.
Yeah, obnoxious. Former Jayhawk, Aqib Talib, of my beloved Denver Broncos, poked a guy in the eye late in the game when the Broncos lost to the Colts, giving the Colts a first down when they were lining up to try a field goal. Would have kept Denver alive. Instead, they get first down, game over, Denver's done. Talib suspended. It was the most pathetic thing I've ever seen someone do. I mean, it was not even like a fake motion. He just went right for his eye. I mean, the Stooges would have been that's pretty blatant.
This is what happen when you allow your kids to watch the Three Stooges from a young age.
Surely Aqib watched the Stooges.
And we watched the Stooges from a very young age in my household. We didn't poke anyone in the eye, but there were others, neighbors, the Valleys. They would poke you in the eye from watching the Three Stooges. That could be what happened here. But Aqib, we know, is one of the most talented, probably one of the top 5 most talented football players. He is a great student of the game, works very, very hard at the game. But then there's just some ways that he's wired a little different and a little wrong. And it's unfortunate that he's got those blemishes on his reputation.
That's exactly right. That was what, it was atrocious to watch it happen, but that was what bothered me. I mean, Aqib. I interviewed Aqib back when he was here. Entertaining, likable dude. But doing things like this justifies all those people that just want to call him a punk, because this is acting like a punk. And it was a brutal thing. When I was watching the game with my dad, the first thing out of my mouth was, I hope he's suspended for that. And again, I don't know if you know this, but I love the Broncos.
I did know that.
You did know that, okay.
And I have a long history with Marquette basketball.
Right, I heard about that.
Well, they have a freshman named Hanif Cheatham.
Here we go.
So I'm thinking, to honor the Three Stooges, they should recruit someone named Dewey, last name of Dewey, and then another Howe. Maybe the hockey family has an athlete who would be good enough to walk on and play basketball. Or even Mark's boy at this stage.
Yeah, right, that's true. Gordy'd really be doing work.
If anybody could do it. But I think they need to recruit a Dewey and a Howe to go with Cheatham, because to honor the law firm that the Three Stooges made famous, Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe.
Wow, good stuff. Aqib Talib bringing it all the way back. Very, very obnoxious this week. Glad he's suspended. Hate that it's against the Chiefs. I'm a little nervous. Not really. We'll talk to you guys next time on KU Sports Extra. The overlap season is here. Basketball and football both in full force. It means we turn our game up. Is your game turned up?
It's turned up.
I see it. We'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for checking out this episode of KU Sports Extra.